What's up, Jets fans? Welcome to the latest edition of Jets Latest, where you get the latest on the Jets, Jets. I'm your host, the spitting statistician, Dane Martinez, and today I want to start to look forward to our game against the Cleveland Browns. We are coming off the bye, but we have to talk about that today is the trade deadline in the NFL at 4 o'clock Eastern, and the Jets have been in the news for a lot of the trade deadline, all the way back since the summer, talking about will they trade Breece Hall, who is in the last year of his deal. There have been reports to suggest that both Quinnen and Quincy Williams are out there, other pieces as well, potentially for the Jets. So I want to make it known right now, I know there's all these names out there. I actually think the Jets will not make an 11th hour move, and that includes Breece Hall. I actually think that Muji, Glenn, the organization, is going to prioritize in the second half of the season climbing out of rock bottom. We talked about that against the Panthers, against the Broncos, and they are looking to build long term, and I think momentum could be that, where they actually look better in the second half of the year. I think they're going to prioritize that over like a fourth round pick that they can get for a really good running back in Breece Hall. There is also the chance that Breece Hall signs with the Jets in the offseason, not at a monster deal because they're going to have Braylon Allen, they're going to have Isaiah Davis, right? But maybe a 2-3 year deal kind of at market value or a little bit less to stay here in this rebuilding process. We will see about that. But I do think the Jets are going to, instead of having the fire sale, they're going to keep their guys together, continue the long-term rebuilding evaluation of their talent, of this roster moving forward. And maybe Breece Hall winds up staying with the Jets. But don't get me wrong, Darren Muji has been active, and I once again want to give kudos to Muji, okay? Think about it. Just since training camp has been ended, they've got Harrison Phillips, they got Juwan Briggs, a young defensive lineman who has played well, Jarvis Brownlee, a young cornerback who has played well, and then last week they trade for John Mechie, who could be that over-the-top kind of wide receiver, an NFL caliber wide receiver. Maybe Arian Smith doesn't develop, and they still are looking for that role. The other thing I want to talk about, in the Carter Mechie trade, the Jets actually saved some money. They cleared $16 million in cap space over the next couple of years, okay? They have $95+ million in cap space for next offseason. Remember, this is a rebuilding team. They have the second youngest roster in the NFL. They've done a lot of short deals, including the Justin Fields deal, which they can kind of get out of. And I credit Moji for that as we kind of bring in the talent, get the people they want in the building. And think about it, they hit in the draft with a lot of these guys, with Membu, with Moore, right? With A.Z. Thomas, we believe, Mason Taylor. So continuing that process to get the roster improved, and I think they're actually doing a good job. It gives me optimism that if you give this Jets front office, Muji, Glenn, some time, they can rebuild this. And I do think a key is going to be not trading Breece Hall for about a third or fourth round pick, but instead trying to build momentum in the second half of the year so we feel like we are on the upswing. I think if you take a zoomed out long view of it, that is more important. I talk about it all the time, right? Dan Campbell first started 0-10-1, 3-13-1. Then they, in that next year, won a lot of games in the second half of the season to start to build a reputation, start to build their kind of habits, and I hope that that's what the Jets can do this time around after the bye in the second half of the season. One guy that is not moving at all, should not move, and got the bag is Sauce Gardner. And I gotta tell you something, there's been a lot, I see on social media, a lot of hate, a lot of shade towards Sauce Gardner, that he's not what he was in his first year. And I guess maybe that is true, but here's some stats to say that he is still absolutely elite and deserves to be the highest paid cornerback in the NFL. Check this out. Sauce Gardner is the only cornerback in the league that's played 200 or more coverage snaps to have 10 or fewer catches against him all season and less than half of the targets against their coverage completed. Let me understand that for you. 10 catches against him all year in 8 games. That's like 1 a game gets completed against Sauce Gardner. When Sauce is covering you and you're sticky and covered in the sauce, everybody has poor outputs, okay? I think that is really important. And combined with what we have gotten in Jarvis Brownlee and what we have seen in the development of Brandon Stephens. Remember, Brandon Stephens is the second best coverage grade in the league since week 4. Jarvis Brownlee is the second best coverage grade in the league since he has been with the Jets. And I think that provides a great match matchup this week against the Cleveland Browns pass offense that is pretty much blunt guts trash, okay? They average only 174 yards through the air. That is the fourth lowest in the NFL. Their completion rate is below 60% at 58.9%. That is the second worst in the league. So when you put the Browns passing offense against the Jets passing coverage defense, it may be a tough go for the Cleveland Browns offense. And the other thing I think this is important, I say it all the time, if you are a Jets latest regular, and thank you to those of you who are, remember you can always subscribe to the channel, tell a Jets fan friend to tell a Jets fan friend. You could also click on that join button at the bottom to become an insider, exclusive content, all sorts of other perks as we continue on this season for the green and white and beyond. What I think it also allows the Jets to do, Steve Wilks, Aaron Glenn, is play man coverage. They want to play man coverage. They're succeeding at man coverage, and that frees up your linebackers a little bit and your safeties to a certain extent to blitz more, to go after the quarterback more, to generate pressure more, to generate negative plays and turnovers, which is something I want to see in the second half of the season. So Sauce, Brownlee, Stevens could be a good matchup against a kind of putrid passing offense for the Cleveland Browns. We'll talk about that more later in the week. The last thing I want to talk about is I've also been making the point ever since the summer, with the change in the kickoff rules in the NFL this year. You know, you got the target area, touchbacks go back out to like the 35 and the 40, and how returns have become a big deal. I said it when the Jets signed Keenan Nwanu, right? And I thought that was an important move. But there has been even more. It's been a collaborative effort here for the Jets in the return game. I've talked about special teams. Austin McNamara has been awesome for us, punting the ball. Our return game has been good. Check it out. The Jets average 27.7 yards per kickoff return. That is fourth best in the NFL. Isaiah Williams, who's come on in some of the Keenan injuries, has a good kickoff average and averages 10.3 yards per punt. That is top 10 in the NFL with guys who are regular punt returners. Listen to what Isaiah had to say, because remember, he did fumble in the second half kickoff against Miami. That was a big turnover when we had one of the worst turnover margins in history early in the season. He goes, "I understand, like in life, you go through trials and tribulations, but it made me stronger. I came back and made it an emphasis. Everything I messed up on, I'm going to get better at. Every day I'm going to go to work on ball security, catch extra punts. I'm going to make sure my field awareness is better. That's just the approach I take, good or bad game." You got to like that. Remember, Aaron Glenn's looking for the character, the right people in the building. And listen, Xavier Gibson, after his fumble, was gone. Isaiah Williams, after his, is still on this roster, is still back there, and is doing pretty good. I will say this, though. Keeney, you see the difference when he is back there. Too bad he's been hurt for much of this year. Keeney Nwanu leads the league with 35 yards per kickoff return. All right. He's missed more than half of the season, unfortunately, and the Jets special teams has still been there. Not only in the return game, obviously Austin McNamara as well. And like I've always been saying here on Jets Latest, the kickoff return, you see it across the league, added importance because of the new rules. And you remember, Aaron Glenn wants to play field position. He wants to play time of possession. He wants to run the ball. He wants to be efficient in the passing game with play action and then have a good defense. So this kickoff return, this punt return, McNamara's punting is a important third phase of the game for the Jets under Aaron Glenn, and that has been doing well. And I like to see that Isaiah Williams is kind of back at work after it during and after the bye. So we will see what happens against Cleveland at home later on this week. Can the Jets actually win 2 games in a row and start to build this momentum I'm talking about? And maybe it'd be a good idea to keep as much talent in-house as we can, including Quincy Williams, including Breece Hall. So that'll do it for this episode of Jets Latest. Remember, watch these videos, like these videos, subscribe to the channel, tell a Jets fan friend to tell a Jets fan friend. I love your comments as well. You could also hit me up on Twitter at Spittin' Speeds. Let's see what some of you Jets Latest regulars have to say. We start with Pitch It Hard, who says, "Jets can put it to Cleveland. They completely suck and are in disarray. It will start a good run." I'm hopeful, and I'm hopeful that that can kind of distance ourselves from the rock bottom and start to build kind of improved habits. I want to see turnovers and penalties as well. I want to see us get rush on the passer. Maybe the sticky man coverage can help that. The run game, and we'll see if Justin Fields any offensive adjustments in terms of play action, screen game, design runs as well. So hopefully it can start a run to make us feel better about the upswing of the green and white. Jet34 says, "Honestly, if it's true and we're going to have a top 10 pick, I'm hoping we're in position to draft a defensive end, Bane, from Miami. This kid looks like a beast, an absolutely game wrecker. He goes, between him, JJ, and Will McDonald, it would be great. If we get the first pick in the draft, I'm trading back to try to get more picks. This is in response, if you remember on Friday, I talked about some of the quarterbacks that could be out there. A lot of people are thinking that they're definitely going to look for a quarterback in the draft. So Jet34 says, not so fast. Maybe a big-time pass rusher could be the prescription. And then finally, as usual, old Dave, one of the regulars here on Jets Latest, has something to say. Says, I have growing confidence in the GM finding people that fit AG's plan. I'm not going to worry about draft stock or position. Winning will do this program more good than anything. Go Jets. And then he says, and go Jets Latest. Thank you, Dave, as always, for being here. I really appreciate that you stick with this channel, you subscribe to this channel. Everybody, tell a Jets fan friend to tell a Jets fan friend. And I do think there's plenty of reasons to be, cautiously optimistic about getting the right talent for Aaron Glenn in the building. I think Jarvis Brownlee's a great example. I think Jawan Briggs is a great example. We'll see if Mechie can do anything in the second half of the season, and the trade deadline is later today. Remember, if you want to hear more from me, spitting statistician Dane Martinez, I am also the host of the FTN Fantasy Show over on Sirius XM. If you need help in fantasy football, if you need help in sports betting, I am here for you. And FTN Fantasy has great tools left and right to help you out with that. You could always also hit me up on social media at Spittin' Speeds. We will be back tomorrow and all throughout the week getting ready for our matchup at home against the Cleveland Browns. But for this episode of Jets Latest, we out of here. Peace.